The dinner had been quiet, the kind of quiet that only comes when two people who've been together for years have said everything they needed to say, except for the one thing that matters. I could feel Elena's nervous energy across the table as I finished my meal, barely tasting it. Her hand shook slightly as she reached for her wine glass. I kept my eyes on the plate in front of me, focusing on the last bite. She cleared her throat. I think we need a break. The words landed like a cold slap against my skin. I looked up from my plate, meeting her eyes. Her face was pale, the usual warm glow gone, replaced with something I couldn't quite place. A break? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though a tightness in my chest made it hard to breathe. Elena's fingers twisted around the stem of her glass. Yeah, a break. I just need some space. I've been feeling like this for a while now, and I think we both need time to figure things out. I blinked, trying to process what she was saying. A break? After everything we'd been through together? The dinners, the late-night talks, the trips, the laughter? I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but it definitely wasn't this. I put my fork down and leaned back in my chair. You want a break? Here? She nodded, biting her lip, her eyes downcast. I didn't want to. I don't know anymore, Nora. I've been thinking about it for weeks. I think we need time apart. I stared at her. I felt a flicker of confusion, a stab of hurt. But instead of responding with the emotion I felt bubbling up in my chest, I let the silence sit between us. I wasn't going to beg her to stay. I wasn't going to chase her down. If you need space, I said, keeping my voice calm, then you can have it. But not here. Not under this roof. Her eyes shot up at me, wide with surprise. Wait, what? Nora, I didn't mean it like that. I'm not giving you a break while you're still here. I replied, my voice steady but firm. If you need time to figure things out, then go. But I can't keep living like this. If you want space, you're going to have to find it somewhere else. There was a long pause, one of those heavy, suffocating silences that seemed to stretch for miles. I could see her struggling, her mind racing, and then her lips parted. I didn't think you'd say that. Why? You expected me to beg? To fight for you? I didn't wait for her response. I've been fighting for us for months, Elena. And now you want a break? Fine. But you're not doing it here. Her eyes glistened, and for a split second, I saw a flicker of something, guilt? Regret? But it passed quickly, replaced by stubbornness. She stood up, pushing her chair back with a scrape that felt like a punch in the chest. Okay, she whispered, turning away. Okay then, I'll go. I didn't move, didn't even blink. My heart was hammering in my chest, but it wasn't with heartbreak. It was with annoyance. Not because I didn't care about her, but because I couldn't keep holding on to something that wasn't working. Not anymore. She grabbed her bag from the counter, her movements jerky, her face flushed. As she headed for the door, I didn't stop her. I didn't chase her down. I didn't beg her to stay. Elena, I said, standing up, my voice steady. You're making the right choice for you. I just hope you're not making the wrong one for both of us. She paused, her hand on the door handle, but she didn't turn around. There was no apology, no plea for forgiveness. She opened the door and left, her footsteps echoing down the hallway. The house felt too quiet, and for the first time in months, that silence didn't feel like emptiness. It felt like relief. I leaned against the counter, staring out the window, watching the night stretch out in front of me. Elena needed a break. But me? I just needed her gone. I could feel my chest unclenching, the weight lifting as I thought about everything that had been building up between us. The silent meals, the unspoken words, the slow fading of something that had once felt like forever. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't devastated. I was just done. And as the night grew darker, the quiet of the house became something else entirely, a beginning. My beginning. The morning after Elena left, I woke up to the quiet hum of the house. It felt different now, somehow empty, but in a way that wasn't as uncomfortable as I'd imagined. It was as though the house itself had exhaled a breath it had been holding for years. The clutter of Elena's things around the apartment wasn't as noticeable in the absence of her. It wasn't haunting, just vacant. I got up, stretching my arms above my head, feeling the cool morning air against my skin. The weight of the night before, her walking out, her final words, was already starting to fade. I walked into the living room and noticed her few things scattered around. A scarf thrown across the couch, an open book left on the coffee table, the glass of wine she had abandoned mid-sip the night before. I took a breath, feeling a sense of resolve tighten in my chest. No more second-guessing, no more wondering. I walked to the closet, grabbed a plastic bag, and began picking up the few remnants of Elena's presence. A pile of clothes from the laundry room, a couple of knickknacks she had left around. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Each item felt like a reminder, a tiny part of the relationship I was letting go of. The scarf she loved, the old coffee mug with the chipped rim she'd never throw out. Into the bag they went. By the time I was done, the house felt a little more like my own again, just a little emptier, but a little lighter. I stood in the hallway, looking down at the bag, already feeling the weight of the past few years lifting off my shoulders. I didn't feel sadness. I didn't feel relief either, just a quiet certainty. I put the bag in the closet and shut the door, the simple click of the lock making the house feel more like mine than it had in months. Then I settled into my routine, grabbing my phone to check work emails, planning my day. Elena's absence was a small adjustment. I didn't have to tell her when I was leaving. I didn't have to check if she was busy before I made plans. I didn't have to walk around wondering if something was wrong. The quiet was almost comfortable, more peaceful than I ever expected. There was no tension in the air, no unspoken questions looming over everything. I had space. I had room to think. And as I sat down at my desk to work, I realized how much I had missed it. Hours passed, and I slipped into the flow of my usual workday. Emails, calls, the steady rhythm of my career that I'd put on the back burner for so long. It was like nothing had changed, but everything had changed. Without Elena in the house, the space felt a little bigger, but the silence didn't feel suffocating. It felt like freedom. Around lunchtime, my phone buzzed, interrupting my thoughts. I picked it up to see a message from my sister, Claire. "How are you doing? Just checking in. If you need to talk, you know I'm here." I smiled at the message. Claire had always been there, ever since we were kids. She was the one who had stood by me when things had gone south with past relationships, the one who had insisted on taking me out for wine after one too many failed dates. We didn't talk often, but when we did, it was like no time had passed. I typed a quick reply. "I'm good, just adjusting. A little quieter around here, but I'm fine. Thanks for checking in." A few seconds later, her response came. "You did the right thing. You're going to be okay." I let her words settle in. It felt reassuring to hear them, to have someone validate the decision I'd made without question. Claire had always been the one to cut through the noise, to remind me of my strength when I didn't see it. But still, the doubt lingered. Did I do the right thing? The silence of the house made me wonder if I'd missed the signs, if I'd ignored something that could have been saved. I replayed moments in my mind. The silent dinners, the constant excuses from Elena, the way she seemed to pull away slowly over the last few months. Had I missed it all? Or had I just ignored it because I didn't want to see? I thought about calling Elena, asking her to explain, asking if there was any part of our relationship worth saving. But then I remembered the night before. The way she had walked out without a fight, without hesitation. She had made her choice, and I'd made mine. I pulled up my calendar and began organizing a few upcoming projects. Work kept me grounded, kept my mind occupied. After all, I couldn't change the past, and I wasn't going to dwell on it. I didn't have time for that. The truth was, I didn't need Elena to feel whole. I was whole without her. The afternoon passed quietly, and as I prepared dinner for myself, I realized something. I didn't miss her the way I thought I would. The house felt like mine again, and as I sipped my glass of wine alone in the kitchen, the absence of Elena didn't feel like a loss. It just felt like space. A space I could fill with whatever I wanted. And that was the first time in a long time I truly felt at ease. It didn't take long for the news to spread. In a town like ours, where everyone knew everyone, word got out about my breakup with Elena before I even had the chance to process it myself. I hadn't expected the gossip to hit so fast, but somehow, it was everywhere. I first heard about it from Amy, a friend from work. We were having coffee on a slow Wednesday afternoon when she casually dropped the bomb. "So, I heard Elena was out at the Chug with some guy last night," she said, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. I barely flinched. "Yeah? I'm not surprised." I tried to sound uninterested, but inside, I felt a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. Maybe disappointment? Or maybe just the cold reality that Elena had already moved on, even before she'd left. Amy raised an eyebrow. "I figured you might know. I mean, I thought you two were, well, you know? Together. Her voice trailed off, waiting for a reaction. But I just shrugged, pushing my cup aside. Yeah, I know, I muttered. I'm sure she's having fun. You know how she is. Amy nodded, sensing she wasn't going to get more out of me. Okay, but I mean, she was all over this guy? Like, seriously all over him. I've never seen her so into someone. I just smiled, though there was nothing in my expression that suggested I cared. Inside, I felt a tinge of something. Was it bitterness? Maybe. It was the same story over and over again. The next day, Greg from the gym told me about Elena's new friend, some guy she'd met at the bar. Then, Carla, a neighbor, casually mentioned that Elena had been jogging with a guy from town. Someone new, someone she'd met after the breakup. Everyone had something to say about it, and I listened, not because I cared, but because the whispers became a constant background noise that I couldn't escape. I wasn't jealous. I wasn't angry. The truth was, I had already checked out of that relationship long before Elena had asked for a break. But seeing her so eager to jump into something new, it wasn't surprising, but it was still a sharp reminder of everything that had been wrong between us. I could almost hear her in my head. I need space, but I'm not ready to be alone. She had always been like that. She needed attention. She thrived on it. I was just the one who gave it to her when no one else was around. But now, as I heard more about her escapades around town, it wasn't anger that filled me. It was something else. A growing indifference. A confirmation that Elena had never truly been about self-reflection, about working through her issues. She just wanted to be wanted. And when one person wasn't enough, she moved on to the next. I didn't involve myself in the drama. I didn't confront her. What was the point? What difference would it make? I had made my choice. I wasn't going to let her drag me back into the chaos of her insecurities. I focused on my work, my life. There were no late-night phone calls from Elena anymore. No heated discussions about our future. It was quiet now. Almost too quiet, but I was adjusting. Even when I heard the gossip, I didn't let it bother me. She could do what she wanted, be with whoever she wanted. It was none of my business. I had enough to think about without worrying about her. It was easier that way, detaching myself completely from her, from the version of me that had been wrapped up in her needs and wants. I was learning to take care of my own. But as I made my way through the week, the stories kept coming. And every time I heard a new one, it only deepened the sense of certainty inside me. Elena wasn't looking for self-discovery. She wasn't interested in being alone. She was looking for the next person to fill the gap I had left behind. And that, more than anything, made me realize how right I was to let go. I wasn't going to chase her. I wasn't going to beg her to stay. That chapter was over, and nothing in the gossip, nothing in the whispers, was going to change that. It was a quiet Friday evening, and I was scrolling through my phone, catching up on work emails when I absent-mindedly clicked open social media. I hadn't checked Elena's profiles in days, intentionally keeping my distance. But tonight, I wasn't thinking about it. My thumb swiped through a few photos when something caught my eye. It was Elena, smiling, laughing, holding hands with a guy I didn't recognize. They were at one of those trendy downtown restaurants, the kind where people pay more for the ambience than the food. The kind of place Elena always loved, but I had never quite fit into. I paused for a second, staring at the picture. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. My heart didn't race, and my stomach didn't twist. I didn't feel jealousy, and I didn't feel anger. I simply felt a little sting, a reminder of how quickly Elena had moved on, how quickly she always moved on. The caption under the photo read, "A night to remember." So thankful for the amazing people in my life. Red heart hashtag new beginnings hashtag grateful. I let out a soft breath, staring at the screen. She had found someone new, a man to fill the space I left behind. And, though I didn't like to admit it, it stung a little. Not because I wanted her back, but because it confirmed everything I had known deep down. Elena was never about healing or growing. She wasn't looking for self-discovery. She was looking for validation, looking for someone else to fill the role I had played. I tapped the screen again, closing out of the post. But as I did, something in me shifted. I realized I didn't want to keep checking in on her life. I didn't want to keep seeing who she was with, where she was going, or what she was doing. It wasn't my business anymore. I had made the decision to let go, to free myself from the past, and checking up on her was only going to pull me back. I deleted the app from my phone, just like that. No more checking, no more wondering. I was done. The emptiness I had expected to feel never came. Instead, I felt a sense of resolve. A quiet confidence, like the final piece had clicked into place. I was done being a part of her life, and her life was no longer my concern. For the first time since the breakup, I felt a deep, satisfying release. There was no more holding on to what could have been or questioning if I had done the right thing. I had, and seeing her so easily move on only reaffirmed that decision. I wasn't the one who had let go too soon. She was. I went about the rest of my evening, a small but significant change already taking root. The next time I felt the urge to check on her, to see how her new relationship was progressing, I would remember tonight. I would remind myself that this chapter was over. For both of us. I didn't need to know what Elena was doing anymore. I didn't need to follow her life through a screen. What mattered now was my life. What I was building. Where I was going. And as the night wore on, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. Something I hadn't realized I was missing. This was me reclaiming control. And I was done looking back. The park was empty, save for a few joggers and dog walkers, the trees casting long shadows as the late afternoon sun began to dip. It was a place that had once held so much significance for Elena and me. We'd spent hours here, talking about everything and nothing, finding comfort in the quiet presence of each other. I arrived early, wanting to take in the stillness before Elena showed up. It felt good to be in control, to have the power to decide the terms of this meeting, even though I wasn't sure what I hoped to get from it. Closure, maybe, or just to see if I was right in my decision. When she arrived, I could tell something was different. Elena, the confident, self-assured woman I had known, was now standing in front of me, dressed down in a hoodie and jeans, her eyes anxious and tired. Her usual spark was dimmed, and I felt an odd satisfaction in seeing her like this, vulnerable, unsure. It was the first time in a long while that I didn't feel the need to caretake her. She stepped closer, then hesitated, biting her lip. Nora, I'm glad you agreed to meet me. Her voice was shaky, and I could tell she was trying to find the words. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I know I made mistakes. I took a deep breath, letting her words wash over me. I wasn't here for her to apologize or to make promises. I was done with that. But I needed to hear her try, to understand if she'd truly realized what had gone wrong between us, or if she was just doing what she always did, finding another way to manipulate the situation. Do you? I asked, my voice steady, though my mind was racing with thoughts of everything I had endured. Because from where I stand, you're still trying to make everything about you. She opened her mouth to protest, but I held up my hand to stop her. No, I said firmly. I'm not here for your excuses. I'm here to finally stop this cycle we've been stuck in. I crossed my arms, steadying myself against the breeze that picked up around us. You wanted space. You took it. And now you're here, trying to make it all okay again. But here's the thing. Elena, I've already moved on. Her eyes widened slightly, and she shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. I know I hurt you, and I get it now. I should have communicated better. I should have tried harder. No, you shouldn't have. I interrupted, my voice calm but resolute. Because the truth is, Elena, this relationship ended a long time ago. You were already checked out, even before you asked for a break. You just didn't have the courage to face it, to admit it. She froze, her lips trembling as she met my eyes. I could see the cracks forming in her facade, the realization that I wasn't going to fight for her, the realization that I had finally seen through all of it. I wasn't perfect, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't know how to fix things. I shook my head. You didn't want to fix things, Elena. You wanted to run from them, to find someone else who would fill the void you were too afraid to face. And now that you've done that, you want to come back to me? Her silence was louder than any words could have been. I've already let you go, I continued, the weight of the past few months finally lifting from my chest. I can't go back to who I was when I was with you. I can't keep pretending that this wasn't a pattern, that I wasn't just a safety net for when you needed someone, and when you didn't, you'd leave me hanging. She stepped back slightly, the last bit of her composure crumbling. I didn't mean to use you. I never wanted that. But I understand if you can't forgive me. I let the silence sit for a moment. I had no more apologies to give. I had no more time to waste on someone who couldn't even figure out what she wanted. I'm not forgiving you, I said quietly. I'm choosing myself. Elena's shoulders slumped as she exhaled, the weight of her own guilt settling over her. But instead of feeling triumphant, I just felt calm. There was no bitterness, no anger. There was only relief. I didn't need her to validate me anymore. I didn't need her at all. I'm done with this. I added, my voice softer now, but no less firm. You need to go figure things out on your own, just like you wanted. But I won't be waiting for you anymore. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes, but she didn't speak. Instead, she turned away slowly, walking toward her car, leaving the park without a single word. As I watched her go, I felt the finality of it settle in. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I just felt free. This was the end of something I had spent too much time holding on to. And now, for the first time in months, I was free to move on. A few weeks had passed since the breakup, and I was starting to feel like myself again. The house felt lighter, quieter, like it was finally coming back to life after months of being overshadowed by the weight of Elena's indecision. I had settled into my routine, work, friends, a little self-care, just the things that mattered to me now. But then, one afternoon, I received an unexpected message. It was from Ryan, the man who had been seeing Elena after our breakup. I had heard a little about him through the grapevine, but I hadn't given it much thought. I figured he was just another chapter in her life, one that I had no real interest in. But now, here he was, asking to meet. Hey Nora, can we talk? I think you deserve to know some things. Can we meet at the cafe? I stared at the screen for a moment, unsure of what he wanted. Why would Elena's new guy want to talk to me? Was he looking for closure, validation? Or maybe he just needed to clear his conscience. I debated for a moment before I replied, agreeing to meet him at a local cafe. I wasn't sure why I was going. Maybe curiosity, maybe a sense of unfinished business. But deep down, I knew this was just another attempt to understand Elena's behavior through someone else. And I wasn't sure I was ready for that. When I arrived, Ryan was already there, sitting at a corner table with his hands folded in front of him. He looked nervous, his eyes darting around as he waited for me. There was no sign of the confidence Elena had spoken about when she mentioned him. Instead, I saw someone who looked like they'd been caught in a lie and was trying to figure out how to make it right. Hey, I said as I sat down across from him, offering a polite but guarded smile. What's this about? Ryan hesitated before he spoke, his voice quiet but earnest. I don't know how to say this, but Elena told me a lot of things about you. And, well, I think she twisted the truth. I raised an eyebrow, my mind already shifting gears. Twisted the truth? I repeated, what are you talking about? Ryan shifted uncomfortably in his seat, glancing around before continuing. She made it sound like you didn't care about her anymore, that you were the one who ended things. She said you were distant, that you didn't fight for her. And I believed it at first. But now, I'm starting to see things differently. I'm starting to think she was just trying to make herself the victim. My stomach tightened as the pieces began to fall into place. Elena had always been good at spinning a story, making herself the center of attention. But hearing it from Ryan, the guy who had apparently fallen for her version of events, confirmed everything I had suspected. Yeah, I said, taking a slow breath. That sounds like something she would do. She has a way of making things sound one way to get sympathy, to make everyone else look like the bad guy. Ryan leaned forward, his expression earnest. I don't know what happened between you two, but I feel like I've been manipulated. She made me believe I was the one she was really interested in. But now, I can't help but feel like I was just a rebound. She's always been good at keeping people around, making them feel like they're the one. And I think I've been played, just like you. I looked at him for a moment, the anger that had once boiled inside me starting to fade into a cold indifference. You're not the first person she's done this to, I said, my voice calm. I'm not surprised you feel betrayed. It's just who she is. She doesn't know how to be alone, and she doesn't know how to be honest. Ryan fell silent for a moment, and I could see the weight of his realization settling over him. It was clear he hadn't fully processed it until now. He had been another pawn in her game, just like I had. Look, I'm not here to talk badly about her, I continued. I've had enough of that with her. But I'm not the one you need validation from. You need to see the truth for yourself. She doesn't get to play both sides. And she doesn't get to make me the bad guy in this. Ryan nodded, his face drawn with a mix of regret and frustration. I know, and I'm sorry. Don't apologize to me. I interrupted, my tone firm. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't know, but now you do. I'm not here to get involved in Elena's drama, and I'm definitely not going to take part in her manipulating people. You need to take a step back and figure out what's best for you. Ryan's face softened, a sense of understanding finally settling in. I just wanted to know if I was wrong about her. If I misunderstood everything. No, I said, shaking my head. You didn't misunderstand anything. She's good at making people think they're the center of her world. But it's never about them. It's always about what she needs in the moment. He sat back, his expression distant as he processed everything. I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't the same guy who had walked into this cafe. He was waking up to the reality of who Elena was. I should have known. He muttered to himself, more to himself than to me. I just didn't want to believe it. I gave him a small, understanding nod. We've all been there. But now you know. And now you can move forward. Ryan stood up, shaking his head as he looked at me one last time. Thank you for telling me the truth. I needed to hear it. Don't thank me, I said, my voice steady. Just make sure you don't let her use you like she used me. Or anyone else. He nodded and left without another word. As I watched him walk out, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction, not because I was glad he'd been hurt, but because I knew I wasn't the only one Elena had strung along. At the end of the day, Elena's manipulations had touched more lives than just mine. And the more I realized that, the more indifferent I became to her. I wasn't going to be part of her drama anymore. Not now, not ever. The weight of it all lifted off my shoulders as I sat there, the cool air of the cafe surrounding me. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was truly free. A few days after Elena left, I found myself standing in the hallway, looking at the last remnants of her scattered around the apartment. It had been an odd feeling, cleaning up after her, packing up the things she left behind. There was no rush to get rid of them, but I knew it was time. The reminders had been everywhere, in the little things she'd brought into the apartment. The books on the shelf, the stray hairpins on the bathroom counter, the half-finished puzzle we'd started together on a rainy Saturday afternoon. But now, it was just me here, and these little things, though seemingly insignificant, carried too much weight. I stood in front of the closet, the door open, staring at the bags of clothes and random items I had set aside for her. It felt strange, but in a good way, like I was putting away the last chapter of a book I was done reading. I grabbed the last of the things, her coat, a scarf she'd left on the couch, and shoved them into a bag. It was the final act, the closing of a door I hadn't fully realized had been left ajar for so long. I took the bags to the car and drove to Elena's sister's house. I had no intention of engaging, no last words or final attempts at reconciliation. I just wanted to get it done and move on. I pulled up to her house and left the bags on the porch with a note, not saying much, just that I was done, and these were her things. When I got back home, the apartment felt different, quieter in a way that wasn't suffocating. It felt like a space that could breathe again. I stepped inside and immediately noticed the shift. The absence of Elena, her presence no longer lingering in every corner, was oddly freeing. I walked through the living room, my eyes landing on the empty spaces where her things used to be. It felt like a clean slate, a place I could finally call my own again, without the clutter of unresolved emotions or unspoken words. I knew what I had to do now. I had to make this space mine, to reclaim it, to make it something that wasn't tied to the past. I started rearranging the furniture, moving things around in a way that felt right for me. I was rediscovering what I wanted, and not what Elena had wanted, or what had been convenient. It wasn't a monumental change, just shifting a few things, but it felt important. I could feel the space opening up, the air becoming lighter. Later, as I sat on the couch, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I was starting to find myself again, to remember the things I had pushed aside in the years I'd been with Elena. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally prioritizing myself, my happiness, my peace. That evening, my phone buzzed. It was Alex, one of my closest friends, checking in to see how I was doing. Hey, how's it going? Are you okay? The text read. I quickly typed a response, keeping it short but honest. I'm good. It feels like I'm finally breathing again. A few seconds later, Alex replied. That's good to hear. I'm proud of you. This is your time now. You're doing great. Her words felt like a balm to my raw emotions. I didn't need constant reassurance, but sometimes it was nice to hear. I felt a sense of pride in her words, as if I were stepping into the version of myself I'd been neglecting for far too long. I went on with my night, settling into a routine I hadn't realized I missed. I made dinner for myself, took a long shower, and watched a movie without feeling guilty or distracted. I no longer had to juggle the tension of an unresolved relationship, the weight of wondering whether we were working things out or just dragging ourselves along. There was no more questioning. There was only the now. Later that night, I picked up a notebook from the coffee table. It was something I'd been meaning to do for a while, plan a solo trip I'd always dreamed of taking. I had been putting it off for years, telling myself I'd wait for the right time, the right partner, the right circumstances. But I realized I didn't need any of that. The right time was now. I started making a list, places I wanted to go, things I wanted to see. The list was long, filled with new cities, foreign streets, and quiet, peaceful corners where I could finally hear my thoughts. I hadn't felt this excited about something in a long time. The idea of traveling alone felt empowering, like I was finally putting myself first in a way that wasn't tied to anyone else's needs or expectations. As I continued writing, I felt something click inside of me. This was my moment, my new beginning. For the first time in years, I wasn't just moving forward to escape something. I was moving forward for myself. It wasn't just about getting away. It was about rediscovering who I was, without Elena, without the weight of the past. This was my time, and I was ready to take it. It had been weeks since I had last heard from Elena. After our conversation at the park, I had cut all contact. There was nothing left to say, no more space for apologies or explanations. I'd made my decision, and now it was time to move forward. But, of course, Elena wasn't ready to let go. At first, it was simple. A few texts, spaced out, pleading for closure. She would ask if we could talk, tell me she just needed a little more time to explain herself. I ignored every one of them, each one a reminder of why I couldn't go back to her. The second round came a week later, a little more desperate. Can we at least talk? Just one last time? I can't move on until I know you're not angry with me. I could feel her guilt trying to crawl into my heart, but it wasn't working. I deleted the message and moved on. There was nothing left here for me. Then came the knock at my door. It was late afternoon, and I had just finished work when I heard it. A soft but insistent knocking, the kind that isn't urgent enough to call for panic, but persistent enough to make me feel uneasy. I opened the door, fully prepared for what I would find Elena. Her eyes were wide, a little frantic. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, her hair a mess and her clothes more disheveled than usual. There was a tremor in her voice when she spoke. Nora, please. I just need to talk. For a moment, I was silent. I didn't invite her in. I just stood there, holding the door halfway open, feeling the weight of her presence at my threshold. Elena, I said, finally finding my voice. What are you doing here? She hesitated before speaking, her gaze darting around as if searching for something to hold on to. I made a mistake. I was selfish, and I took you for granted. I should have never left. I was just so confused, but I know now that I want you. I want us. Please, just hear me out. I could see the desperation in her eyes, the tears that were threatening to spill over. It was the same routine I had seen countless times before. When things got tough, when she realized the grass wasn't greener, she would always come back to me, expecting me to fix everything. But not this time. I wasn't going to be her fallback anymore. Elena, I said again, this time with more firmness, you don't get to come back into my life whenever it's convenient for you. You walked away. You made your choice. Her lip trembled, and she took a step closer, her hand reaching out like she expected me to pull her in. Please, don't shut me out. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I've thought about nothing but this, and I know I was wrong. I can't stand this. I need you, Nora. I felt nothing in that moment. No anger, no resentment, just a quiet clarity. The woman who had stood in front of me, the one who was now pleading for another chance, wasn't the same person I had fallen in love with. This version of Elena was broken, desperate, and looking for someone to fix her, but I wasn't that person anymore. I'm done, Elena, I said, the words slipping out like a final exhale of air. I don't need you in my life. I can't keep doing this. I've already moved on, and you need to do the same. Her face fell, and I could see the moment it hit her that there would be no turning back. She wasn't going to win me over with more apologies or guilt trips. You're really done? Her voice was barely a whisper, like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Yes, I answered, my voice steady. This is over. You've had your chance, and I'm not going to keep pretending that we have a future. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't fight me. She didn't beg. Instead, she stepped back slowly, as if she were trying to process what had just happened. There was a long silence, and for the first time in a while, I felt no need to fill it with words. Elena finally wiped her eyes, took a deep breath, and turned to leave. "I understand," she said, her voice small and resigned. "I really am sorry, Nora. I always will be." I didn't respond. I just watched her walk away, her footsteps soft against the pavement, the sound of her retreat echoing in the distance. When the door clicked shut behind me, I stood still for a moment, letting the silence of the house wash over me. There was no anger, no regret, just a deep sense of relief. I had closed that door for good. Elena was gone, and I was finally free. It had been a few weeks since Elena's last attempt to reach me. Since that moment at my door, when I'd shut it on her without a second thought, I'd finally allowed myself to step fully into my life again. No more waiting for her, no more wondering what went wrong. I was just free. But, as life often does, the universe gave me one final piece of the puzzle, confirming that I had made the right decision. It started with a conversation at the coffee shop, of all places. I was picking up my usual morning latte when Carla, a neighbor, waved me over with a strange look on her face. "You heard about Elena, right?" she asked, lowering her voice as if it was some kind of secret. I paused, trying to mask my surprise. "Elena?" I shook my head. "No, what happened?" "Well," word's spreading fast. "She got let go from her job at the law firm. I hear they were making cuts, but I bet her attitude didn't help. And get this, her sister's been saying she's crashing with her for now. Things aren't going so great." My stomach twisted, not because I was happy she was struggling, but because it confirmed what I had suspected. Elena had always been so good at running from problems, and when they piled up, she had no idea how to deal with them. "Really?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral, though something inside of me felt oddly lighter. "I didn't know, but she'll figure it out." Carla nodded, still lowering her voice. "I wouldn't count on it. She's been getting a lot of attention, but not the good kind. I think she's spiraling." I didn't ask for more details. I didn't need to know about Elena's unraveling. It wasn't my business anymore. But as I walked home that morning, I felt an unexpected sense of vindication. Elena had always acted like the world revolved around her, like everything and everyone would fall into place once she made her next move. But now, her carefully constructed world was crumbling. Over the next few days, the whispers continued. I heard about her losing her job from another friend, and then about her falling out with her sister. I didn't indulge in the gossip, but it kept coming back to me in fragments. It was hard not to hear it when the people around me seemed so eager to talk about it. Elena wasn't just falling apart. She was being exposed for the same patterns she'd used to manipulate everyone around her. As the weeks went on, I kept my distance. I refused to get involved. I refused to feel guilty for not reaching out. I wasn't cold-hearted. I just didn't need to be a part of her mess anymore. What struck me most, though, wasn't the fall itself. It was the way it mirrored everything I had gone through with her. Elena had always made me feel like I was the one with the problem. She'd made me feel guilty for not doing enough, for not being enough. And yet, now I saw her struggling with the very same thing she had once used against me. She had used me. She had used me just like she was using everyone else. I knew I'd made the right choice when I'd walked away. I didn't need her to validate me anymore. I didn't need to be the one picking up the pieces when she broke. One evening, while I was having dinner with a friend, I heard about Elena's most recent drama. "It's really not looking good for her," my friend said, shaking her head. "Her sister's not talking to her, and she can't seem to get anything going. She's desperate." I nodded. I wasn't celebrating her failure, but I wasn't mourning it either. Elena had always been someone who ran from problems, never faced them. And now, the consequences were catching up to her. I didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. If anything, I felt a deep sense of relief. Watching her fall apart wasn't about me feeling better. It was just confirmation that I had made the right decision by leaving her behind. I wasn't in the wrong for putting myself first. I wasn't selfish for deciding that my peace of mind was more important than her drama. And as I reflected on the past few weeks, I realized something I hadn't fully understood until now. I had become stronger. Every moment without her had taught me that I didn't need anyone to complete me. I was whole on my own, and I could handle whatever life threw my way. The final pieces of the puzzle fell into place. I hadn't just left Elena behind. I had left behind the version of myself that had been willing to sacrifice everything for her. I was no longer that person, and I was never going back. My life was better now. I was better now. And I knew, without a doubt, that I had made the right choice. There was no turning back, only forward, and the future looked brighter every day. It had been a month since Elena had walked out of my life for good. The days since then had blurred into a peaceful rhythm I hadn't realized I was missing, one that was completely mine. I was back at work, enjoying my projects and finding time to focus on myself, without the constant tug of wondering where Elena was or what she was doing. I'd grown comfortable in the space I'd carved out for myself, a space that no longer felt defined by the ebb and flow of a relationship that had run its course. Elena's attempts to contact me had stopped. The texts, the messages, each one a small plea for closure or an apology, had become fewer and fewer, until they were nothing at all. I had made my decision to let her go, and it felt more certain every day. I had no intention of reopening that door, and I realized I hadn't even wanted to. It wasn't that I hated her. It wasn't even that I was angry anymore. I was simply done. I had nothing left to give to someone who had taken so much from me without ever truly seeing me. I had finally stopped looking back, knowing there was nothing to return to. One afternoon, I found myself sitting on my couch, sipping a cup of tea and flipping through a travel brochure I had picked up weeks ago. It had sat on my coffee table for days, and today, I was finally ready to look at it. Really look at it. The pages were filled with images of beautiful beaches, ancient cities, and quiet mountain retreats. It was everything I had dreamed of but never thought I could do on my own. The idea of taking a solo trip had always been something I talked about, but I always put it off. There was always a reason to wait, a reason to stay put, until now. I realized how much I had sacrificed for Elena's whims, how much of my own desires had been buried under the weight of keeping our relationship intact. But now, I was free to make the choices I wanted, without asking for anyone's permission or approval. I pulled out my phone, opened my calendar, and started planning. Where did I want to go first? Italy? Spain? Maybe a quiet village in the French countryside. I felt excitement build inside me, the kind I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just about the trip itself, it was about what it represented. It was the first step into a future that I controlled, a future where I was the only person I had to answer to. That evening, I sat at my desk, lost in the details of my travel plans, when my sister Claire called. She was always the one to check in on me, the one who made sure I was doing okay, especially after everything with Elena. "How's it going?" she asked, her voice warm and familiar, like a comfort I didn't realize I needed. "Good. Really good, actually," I said, unable to hide the smile in my voice. "I'm planning that solo trip I've always talked about." There was a beat of silence, and then Claire's voice broke through. "I'm proud of you, Nora. I really am. You deserve this. You deserve so much more than what you've been putting up with." Her words filled me with something I hadn't expected, a deep, quiet sense of pride. It wasn't about needing validation from her or anyone else. It was just the truth. I had done something for myself, and it was enough. "I'm starting to realize that," I said softly. "I'm finally putting myself first." "Good. It's about time," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "You've been putting everyone else ahead of you for so long. Now it's your turn. No more second-guessing yourself." As we talked, I found myself reflecting on how far I had come. It wasn't just the travel plans or the quiet apartment. It was the way I was starting to live my life for me. I didn't have to compromise. I didn't have to settle. I could take up space, make decisions, and finally, believe that I was worth all the things I'd been too afraid to pursue. The conversation turned to lighter things after that, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on the edge of something new. It wasn't just the trip that was calling me. It was the freedom to be the person I had put on hold for so long. I spent the next few days finalizing my plans, booking flights, reading about destinations, and picking out activities that felt exciting and completely selfish in the best possible way. As I did, I found myself growing more excited about what was ahead. It wasn't about escaping my past. It was about stepping into the future. A month ago, I had been unsure. I had questioned whether I was making the right choice by walking away from Elena. But now, as I packed my suitcase, as I planned this trip, I felt nothing but confidence. I wasn't just healing, I was thriving. I had let go of a past that wasn't mine to carry, and now, I was ready to take on the world. No more compromises. No more second-guessing. Only forward. And for the first time in a long time, I was exactly where I was supposed to be.